Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel Watercolor Impressions. Since it's snowing lately in Toronto, I thought it would be nice to do a winter painting and I want to share the process with you. Before we get on to it, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. Before we begin any painting, the first step is to draw. So the drawing acts as a map so that we know where everything goes. I try to keep it light as possible, and the darker areas I know where the darker parts are. So it will help me to put the painting wherever it goes. So let's start with the light wash. For the light wash, I start with NeutralTint and a little bit of Cobalt Blue in it. And since it's a overcast, I don't want to have a lot of colors in it. And you can see I'm also using a soft brush which holds a lot of water in it. So I want to create this wintry, moody painting. And I'll just keep building it up and I'll create a gradient from top to bottom. Let's start with the background building. For the background building, I'm using a lot of burnt umber and a little bit of blue in it. And you can also see I'm also mixing a lot of colors in my paint as well. And I'm also going darker at the bottom, because when you take a look in our reference or when you go outside and look at it, there's a lot of darker values happens at the bottom of the road or horizon than at the top. So I just want to make that, it goes softer at the background, because I don't want to my background to read as much as I want. Now I want to connect the background building to my midtone building. You can see I'm using a lot of amber and a little bit of green in it, if you don't believe. And I'm also using a little bit of neutral tint in it. You can also see I'm also using a little bit of white paint because it looks super vibrant. So to kill the vibrancy, sometimes I mix neutral tint or white to get rid of that vibrant color in my paintings. You can see, even though there's a lot of details in our reference, I try to keep this as minimalistic as possible. And I also look for shapes, big major shapes in my painting and in my references. The other trick is to squint your eyes and look at your reference, so it will give the shapes and details which you have to put in your painting. I also add a lot of darker details in my building as well. I also want to create this painting as loose as possible. There are certain artists who prefers tight look, but I moved on from a tight look to a looser look because I really enjoy painting looser paintings. So you can see there is like a awning which is happening, the red awning. So I want to keep really vibrant in the foreground. As it goes to the mid-ground, it gets lighter. So it also gives a sense of perspective and depth in our painting. And you can see there's a lot of raw amber at the top as well. And I also have a little bit of darker value as well. And you also see I also left quite a lot of white bits at the top of the store. The reason being is we can use this as snow and you can leave it as it is. Now I'm taking yellow ochre and a little bit of neutral tint, and I'm adding the pillars for the shop which is in the foreground. So I'll take the darker pigment, and I'm also for darker pigments I don't use just neutral tint. I also mix a little bit of burnt amber, burnt sienna to have color variations in the darker pigments as well. For the road, I mix whatever I want, but the major color I'm mixing is raw amber and neutral tint in it. And you could see I also lift a lot of white bits, so it also gives an impression of snows as well. And you can also see that I'm also being aware of my perspective when I painted that strokes, which is going from foreground to the background. And there is also a fire hydrant. I used Cadmium Yellow for it. We're officially done with the first wash. Now let's jump on to add some figures. For the person who is in the foreground, he's carrying an umbrella, even though the colors are different, but I want to give a different color for it. So blue is like really a primary color which complements with the red, so I'm adding a blue umbrella. And for the figure in the foreground, I'm using neutral tint for it, and it's like quite a pigment consistency, so there is no water in it, it's pure pigment. So you can see I created a layer of figures which has a lot of details in the foreground, midground and the background. Now I want to add some darker details in the foreground and the background. So for that I'm mixing raw amber and a little bit of NeutralTint in it. So once I mix it, I'll just add the details. And there's also an object which is also sits in the foreground. I also want to use that object as a lead-in for us. So I'm using raw amber and a little bit of NeutralTint in it at the bottom. We are almost at 80% done with our painting. Now it's a matter of adding some snow. In watercolors, it's really hard to bring back some whites. You can also use Chinese white, but personally I prefer, when I do snow painting, I usually use gouache, because gouache helps us to bring up a lot of snow effect, as well as bring back the eyelets pretty good compared to Chinese white. So I'm using I'm also using like a really tiny brush, because there is also some of the trees and bushes at the top of the store, so I want to bring back the details as well. So I'm using pure pigment of gouache in there with no water in it, you could see. And I'm also making sure that I'm varying my shapes from the foreground to the background as well, because shapes gets bigger in the foreground and it goes to the midground and the background, it gets smaller, and I'm being aware of my perspective as well. This is like a really fun part to do. Don't get carried away. I usually get carried away with this. And I also add more details in the foreground than the background. And you could see as soon as we add a little bit of gouache here and there, and the whole painting took place and came alive. Now it's a matter of squinting your eyes and putting details where you want it. And I also put like some highlights for the figures, and which also helps us to bring people in the foreground. And you can also see as soon as I add a little bit of white paint in the midground building, it gave me a snow effect in our painting as well. And I'm also a little bit of adding a snow effect in the foreground as well, the directional lines. I forget to add some darker tones, which is at the top of the store. For the top of the store, I'm using NeutralTint, and I'm trying to bring back some of the eyelet, so it kind of looks like there is something happening and the snow is sitting on top of it. And I'm trying to break the shapes, because I don't want clean straight lines. That's it, folks. We're officially done, and this always gets me excited to taking off the tape of a painting. And it gives this clean, crisp lines in your painting, and it shows how it will look like when it's framed. Thanks again for watching this winter painting video tutorial with me. I hope this process helps you to come up with your own painting, or if you do a painting following this tutorial, share it with me. And I love to share with my subscribers as well. If you have any other requests or subjects you want me to cover in watercolors, let me know in the comments or write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com. Thanks again for watching this tutorial. Please hit that subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And please do share with your friends and family. And good luck with your painting, folks.